Back to the practice, yogis. Today is day 20 in the 30-day yoga series. Get on your mat. Today's practice is a yin style practice, so we'll be holding the poses a little bit longer. For the practice today, you could have 2 blocks or a couple of small pillows from your couch and a blanket or a towel. So let's begin. We'll start the practice today in a kneeling position, just as I am. You can press the tops of the feet down onto the ground, and if you find that your ankles hurt, go ahead and grab your towel and place it underneath the ankles. Place the palms facing down on the thighs and press the tops of the feet down into the earth. Relax your eyes and begin to center and come into your breath. Inhale, bring the shoulders up to the ears. And let them press down and away as you exhale. Inhale up to the ears and down the back. One more time, breathing in and out. Now find your Ujjayi breath. Rest the tongue on the roof of the mouth, soften the eyes. Follow the breath in through the nose, down into the lungs, all the way to the bottom, and back up to the tops of the lungs. On the exhalation, empty out from the top of the lungs down to the bottom, drawing the navel in. Let's try it. Just visualizing the breath going in helps find the pattern that's right for you. Finding balance. Can come into our affirmation for our practice today. Rest the hands in front of the heart space. Anjali Mudra. Bow your head in towards your heart. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. Let the eyes start to open up. Release the hands. Now you can bring your hands down in front of you. You might choose to use the blocks as well. We're going to stretch the ankles a little bit, so stay in your breath. Press into the hands and begin to lift the knees up off the ground. So I'll just move the blocks back so you can see. We're lifting the knees off the ground and we're going to hold the pose now. Let the eyes close and you can come back into your affirmation at any point. If your eyes aren't closed, find something out in front of you. You might even light a candle. Listen to your breath. We work on stillness in the postures, beginning to stretch some of the connective tissue in the body. And we start to look within, using this time to reflect. Where can you find some stillness and self-care off of your mat? And slowly release the knees down. You can bring the hands forwards up onto hands and knees and stretch one leg back and then the other, releasing the ankles. Just taking your time to move from one leg to the other. And from here, we're going to tuck the toes under this time, bringing the bottoms of the feet to the mat, pressing the heels towards each other, and pressing the sitting bones onto the heels. So notice if you're leaning forwards, you want to try to send your weight back into the heels. You can look down and try to feel your pinky toes tucked under. And from there, you can take the hands the palms facing up, let the eyes close. Watching the breath in through the nose, down to the bottom of the lungs and up to the top. And from the top down to the bottom. And starting to find the flow of the breath that guides you into peace. Beneath the surface, underneath, maybe you have a little discomfort in the posture. It shouldn't be painful, but it might feel a little uncomfortable. We must get through that discomfort to have liberation. Remember, your eyes can be closed or open, gazing at the top of the mat, with the eyes at a half gaze. If it becomes too intense, you can always come out of the pose. Try to stay there for 1 or 2 more breaths and then come out. And over time, you can add more time in the posture. Now release, bring the hands in front. That's so good for the arches on the feet from wearing shoes all day. Again, stretch your legs out, one leg and then the other. You can bring your legs around to the front now and just take some ankle circles. I have my blanket for sitting on today. So you can take your feet out in front and just make some rotations through the ankles, clockwise and counterclockwise. And now we'll come into a butterfly pose. So you can bring the soles of the feet together, and you might find that if you're in the pose and your pelvis is tucked under, you can use the blanket, fold it, or a pillow. Sit right on the edge. And the blocks can come under the knees. The elbows can come onto the inner thighs. Make sure you don't press on the inner edges of the knees. The thumbs can come to the forehead and purposely round the back, taking a few breaths. And then we'll settle into the pose, so let the legs go so the blocks can hold them. Breathe into the back side of the body. If you find you can go a little deeper into the pose, you can release the hands and bring the forehead down, maybe stacking the fists on top of the inner edges of the ankles. You could also use a block. If you had extra cushions under the knees, you could use a block under the forehead, which is one of my favorite ways to do the pose. Now we'll hold the posture. Come back to your intention. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. Let's use this time to release and let go of any tightness in the body, of any pains or worries that you feel are being held within. Remind yourself that you have nowhere else to be right now. This is your time for you. Each breath bringing in some compassion to your whole being. You might start to notice the spaces after the exhalation and after the inhalation. Notice if your mind is wandering. Continue to fine-tune the mind focusing on the breath. And over time, you'll find some stillness in between the breath. You might even find some quiet within that space. Now you can start to move your body, lifting your head up gently. Once your head comes up, let your eyes open. And bring the hands to the outsides of the knees. Stretch the legs out once again. Take a few more ankle circles, maybe some wrist circles. Enjoy the self-care that you're offering on your mat. We'll come down onto our back now. Bring your knees into your chest. And from here, we're going to take the knees over to the left side of the mat. So you might find that you want to place a bolster, a blanket, a block underneath the thighs if you feel like the twist is too far. The right arm can reach up and over and out into a T position. Make sure that your right shoulder is down on the ground and then your left arm. You could also place a bolster or a blanket between the knees. Let's take a couple of breaths here. Let your body settle down into the ground. You could turn your gaze towards your right fingers. And feel your breath filling into your belly. Feel any spaces that are tensed up. And let those spaces open up through the breath, through holding the pose. If we're on the move all the time, it's difficult to find any self-care. And we continue in the same pattern. Finding stillness helps us to reflect. So we'll take about a minute in the pose. You could go up to 3 minutes. It's a nice way to release through the hips, the belly, the low back, IT band, TFL, chest, shoulder. Let's come back to center. Bring your head to center. Bring the knees to the center. And we'll shift onto the second side. You can move the props. Bring your blanket to the opposite side of the mat. Knees come into the chest. And let the knees drape over to the right side. It's also nice to have a blanket beneath your head. You might gaze to your left. And try not to judge yourself, judge the body. Just notice those sensations and feelings. And welcome in a deep softening as you feel stillness in your physical body, as the mind becomes still. Feel yourself unraveling all that tension that's built up in the body, almost creating a stickiness, like a thin layer of glue weaved through the body. reach down for the block and bring the knees back to center. Remember, you can stay longer by pausing the video. Take a moment there. Take the feet nice and wide and let the knees fall together. Now we'll go ahead and come up into a seated position. So we'll come into child's pose now, so you can use your props. If your knees are sensitive, then use the blanket under the knees. Another place to put the blanket is right beneath the sitting bones on top of the calves. You can take the knees nice and wide. You could have another pillow out in front of you. You could also use the block underneath the forehead. If you find you'd like to lower your head a bit further, you can bring the knees all the way together. Bring the hands under the forehead and release down into the pose. Once you get into the pose and you're in the place where you want to stay, find your breath pattern. And hopefully you're keeping your breath pattern as you move from one pose to another. So the whole practice is a moving meditation. Any thoughts that come up for you, notice those thoughts, push them to the side, and return to your breath. You might count the length of the breath to help quiet the mind. You could use visualization, watching the breath enter the body as a light of prana, new energy, into the back side of the lungs. You could stay here for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, if you have more time. Remember, you can customize the practice just for you. Come back to your intention. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. There is no need to do, just undo. Let's begin to curl up slowly. Bring the hands onto the thighs and start to open your eyes. From here, we'll come into our pigeon pose. So again, you can use the blanket today. We'll bring the right knee forwards behind the right wrist, and you can take your blanket and bring it underneath the right sitting bone for the practice today. Use the block out in front of you. Look over your left shoulder, walk your left foot in line so the ankle's in line with the knee. Lengthen the spine, press down into the top of the left foot, and begin to fold forwards. You could use a block under the forehead. Bring the palms down on the ground, and let's come into the posture. Move the right sit bone towards the left side of the mat. Finding your stillness once you've wiggled into the pose. I'm talking a little less today so that you can have this quiet time. It's important to listen and look within, disconnecting from the outside world.
Really moving your gaze inwards and practicing withdrawal of the senses outwards, moving them inwards. You could do this in the evening and dim the lights, light more than one candle. A great time is also in the afternoon, midday. You'll find when you come into stillness, you might feel more energy or like this recharged feeling afterwards, especially with a consistent practice. Let's start to come up out of the pose and we'll switch sides. So lift your head. You can come to down dog or hands and knees for a moment. And then we'll move to the second side. Bring the left knee forwards. You can bring the heel towards the pubic bone more today instead of bringing the left ankle towards the right hand. Walk your foot back, look over your right shoulder. Line your foot up so it's right in line with your knee. Untuck your toes, and when you're ready, bow forwards again. Allow yourself to find stillness and be patient. It's not easy to welcome in stillness if it's something that's new to you. Think of how quick you move through your day from one appointment to another, or from one task to another, or perhaps multitasking, triple tasking. We all do it. So now's the time to find that one task, which is self-care. Feel the left sitting bone moving to the right side of your mat. And take a few breaths. You could set a timer as well if you wanted to pause the video and stay for another minute. Use your hands and start to rise up. You can bring the legs around to the front this time. Move the blanket from underneath. And sit for a moment. And now it's time for everyone's favorite, Shavasana. So you can use the blanket today under your head. What you do is you're going to tuck the side that's closest to the bottom of your skull. Just tuck it under to make a small triangle. You could also place the blocks under the knees. Use your elbows to lower you down. So lower yourself in a way that's much different than the way you might normally use your core to lower you down. You could take your hands underneath the towel, just tuck in the edges and use it to cradle the skull. Bring your arms down by your sides. And I invite you now to relax the legs with an external rotation. Let your breath fade away. Feel your body settling on the earth. Arms, legs, head and spine. Eyes looking into your heart space as the body begins to rest. As the body begins to rest. Feel the body almost becoming one with the mat and the earth. Notice warmth or tingling beneath the surface of the skin. Energy to support you Let your eyes settle into your light within, and then follow the light upwards. Around the body. Imagine as if you're looking down at yourself resting, lying peacefully, relaxed, at ease. And from there, following the glowing light, back down into the heart space, moving to the edges of the body, feeling where you're touching the mat or the towel beneath you, starting to feel the texture beneath you, beginning to move the body, feel the breath come and go again, reach the arms overhead. A nice afternoon or evening stretch. Release the arms to your sides and very slowly roll onto your right or your left side into your fetal position. You can cover your eyes with your hand. Feel the darkness. Feel the peace within. Ask yourself how you can add some self-care into your day off of your mat. Maybe it's taking off an appointment and having 30 minutes or even 15, something that's realistic to you, to take a walk in nature, read a book, something that you enjoy. Use your hands, push yourself upwards. Let's finish in an easy cross-legged position. Close the practice by bringing the hands to the heart space. Bow your head and honor yourself. Thank yourself for the time you made for you. I find peace and restoration in stillness and self-care. As you close your practice, bring your thumbs to your third eye, clarity in the mind. Bring the thumbs to the mouth, positive internal dialogue, and bring your thumbs to your heart, compassionate actions to yourself and others. Namaste. Thanks for joining the practice today. If you'd like to try a morning flow, try this one right here. And I'll see you tomorrow for day 21.